What's going on, Star Wars fans? How you doing today? Welcome to Star Wars Doctrine, where we talk about everything there is to talk about in our favorite galaxy far, far away. This week has been filled with some really fun Star Wars stuff, and to add to it, we now have a new Age of Resistance comic. I've covered some of these in the past, I believe like Phasma and some of the other ones. Basically, the Age of the Resistance takes a character and does a story on one character at a time. This one's about Supreme Leader Snoke, and it's really cool. There was some Star Wars released some early stuff on it. Some of the shots where Kylo and Snoke go to Dagobah from this comic were released a little earlier, so there's been a lot of hype on that. And let me just tell you, this has been one of my favorite comics so far. It's just explores Snoke's backstory a little bit and some training of Kylo Ren, which we haven't really seen, and I thought that this was an awesome way to do it the way that they did it. So I'm really excited to kind of walk through it with you guys. So let's get started. The comic starts out on what is called the Rarlek system, and Snoke has Kylo in a force grab, and he's holding him over a cliff. This is like a rocky, kind of cold, dark-looking planet, and he says, "I'm not afraid," and Snoke says, "Yes, you are. I can feel it." And he's literally holding him over an edge, so I think I'd be afraid too. And Snoke then goes on to say that, you need to basically turn your anger and let it unleash, and powerful beings can harness their rage, use it to strike. And then he says, "For we either strike or we fall." And he just drops Kylo Ren off of this edge. Talk about some really intense training. It's kind of like reminded me of when a baby bird's just supposed to learn how to fly. They literally just drop them, or kick them out of the nest and hope that they fly, or otherwise they're going to die. I did notice one thing. They pay attention to Snoke's ring a lot in this, which there's lots of theories going around about his ring and how it possibly plays into his character. The attention to detail, to me, really shows. I don't think Lucasfilm would be making sure that this ring appears on him at all times, unless it had something to do with his identity. You can spin it a million ways. Some people say it's how Palpatine's controlling him, or whatever. The only thing we really know about the ring is that the crystal on it came from the catacombs of Vader's castle on Mustafar, which is a really cool fact. But I have to believe there's more, because of more to do with the ring as far as his backstory, just because they really pay so much detail and attention to it. And I thought it's really cool. So Snoke's wearing his gold jacket, got his ring on, looks pretty much kind of like we see him in The Last Jedi. But anyways, carrying on, he drops Kylo. And the next frame shows us that Kylo is falling to his death, basically, and actually catches himself with the Force right before he hits the ground. And you see Snoke in the background comes down these stairs to see if he lived, and he pretty much asks Kylo, he's like, "Oh, so you're not dead?" And Kylo's like, "What the heck? Like, would you have caught me if I would have fallen? And if I wouldn't have been able to catch myself?" And Snoke's pretty much like, "No, like, you need to learn for yourself. And, it's all about power and learning to harness that power." So I thought it was kind of interesting and cool to see how Kylo's instincts kick in here, and he's able to save himself with the Force. Kind of reminds me of how in Episode 8, Luke stops himself from falling hard on the stairs with the Force after Rey kind of knocks him over when she scares him by pulling out the lightsaber. That kind of move also kind of shows me maybe how Jedi survive pretty far falls, just because they're able to use the Force to kind of shield themselves. Cool way to explore that power. But it's just interesting too, Snoke trying to basically help Kylo get rid of his fear and his conflict. So then they get aboard a ship and they head to the Dagobah system. And that's really cool to me, to pay homage to some of the original places. It does bring up a lot of questions, but in the ship, they land, they get ready to go out into the Dagobah system, and Kylo grabs his helmet, and Snoke tells him to leave it, and that he can't hide behind a mask here. He can't just pretend to be Vader. And Kylo still tries to grab it, and Snoke actually just backhands him, knocks like maybe even some blood out of his mouth. So apparently a little bit of an abusive relationship here between master and apprentice, and obviously Kylo puts up with it. But Snoke's very power hungry and doesn't put up with any crap from Kylo apparently. But thought it was interesting that they show how much Snoke didn't like Kylo Ren wearing the helmet even before Episode 8, before he started complaining and saying, take that ridiculous thing off. Apparently Snoke really never liked the mask to begin with. So that's kind of interesting. But they go down to the Dagobah system, and Kylo basically says that he can still feel Luke's presence here. He can tell that his uncle trained here. And Snoke says, yeah, he's one of the greatest Jedis of all time, and he trained here, so it's no wonder you can feel the presence of his force. And Kylo actually asks him, and probably one of the coolest lines in this comic, he said, why do you talk about him like that with so much respect? And Snoke says, he's earned it. He's earned my respect and my fear. And Kylo's like, he's weak. Snoke says, he's not weak, he's just misguided. And then in the biggest burn of the whole comic, he says, if I had your uncle by my side instead of you, the galaxy would have been mine a long time ago. So that just really proves how Snoke really fears Luke's power. Like, you can see that in The Last Jedi. Even a little bit in The Force Awakens, but to hear him say, like, Luke's earned my respect and fear. There's reasons that I fear him. He is powerful. He is incredible. And if I had him, the galaxy wouldn't stand a chance. So Kylo then goes down into the dark side cave. Snoke sends him in, the exact same cave that Luke goes into to fight Vader, which ends up being showing the mirror of himself. And I thought that was really cool too. This dark side cave has obviously been a mystery in Star Wars. Lots been talked about it, a lot of theories on it. And to pay homage to the originals was really cool. The only thing it had me questioning was, how did Snoke know about the cave and about Dagobah? And it kind of got my mind turning, wondering if Snoke has personal connections with Luke, or who would have told him. Like, I can't imagine Luke just advertised to the galaxy that, hey, I did all my training on Dagobah with Yoda. So Snoke had to have some connection, some way to find out where Luke did his training, where Yoda was hiding, where this cave was. And I just thought that was really interesting, because Dagobah was obviously ultimately hidden from the Emperor and Vader. So I'm wondering how Snoke found out. It really has me questioning if Snoke maybe was a friend at a time or what. But so Kylo ventures into the cave, and naturally, he sees his enemy, which is Luke, as Luke saw Vader. And Vader says, I don't want to fight you. And of course Ben says, I don't care, and ignites his lightsaber. They start clashing and fighting, and Snoke doesn't go into the cave, kind of like Yoda didn't. But Snoke is still reaching out to Kylo in the Force, and he's almost playing with his emotions. He's saying that he needs to release his anger, and remember, he tried to kill you in your sleep. And Snoke's really feeding into the darkness and really trying to push Kylo to give it everything he has. And so Kylo strikes down Luke. And he says to Snoke, I'm done. I did it. And Snoke says, not done. It's far from over. And then all of a sudden, Kylo hears a voice. He says, Ben? And he turns to see that it's Leia and Han, his parents. And Leia's saying, Ben, please stop. You're loved. It's you. You're Ben Solo. You're loved with us. We still care about you. And Snoke, from outside the cave, he says to Kylo, I feel the struggle. I feel your conflict. You need to defeat it. So Kylo ignites his lightsaber and just starts going crazy, striking, slashing, anger and hate all over the place. And we're led to believe that he just destroyed Leia and Han, and that a lot of his conflict is now gone. Snoke says to him, snuff it out, kill your parents. And then the next panel comes, and we find out that Kylo never even swung his lightsaber at his parents. He actually swung it at trees and rocks and things inside the cave around his parents, just to trick Snoke into thinking that he was destroying his parents. And that was one of the most interesting parts of this, because it was a twist to me. I thought, holy cow, this guy is dark. He's just going ham on his parents right now, wrecking them, destroying them, letting the past die. But we keep finding this conflict in Kylo Ren, where you find that he really maybe didn't want to kill his parents. He struggled in episode 8 trying to kill Leia. Obviously, he did what needed to be done with Han, but you could tell there was still some conflict in his heart. But here, he only leads Snoke to believe that. And I thought that was really cool and kind of consistent with Kylo's character, because in episode 8, he kind of leads Snoke to believe that he's going to ignite his lightsaber into Rey, and he ignites it into Snoke. So Kylo's kind of a master of deception here. And like I said, it was very fitting with his character. And the fact that Lucasfilms, once again, is paying attention to these details and keeps bringing up the conflict in Kylo has me thinking about episode 9 a little bit, wondering where his character arc's going to go. This makes me feel like he is redeemable and that there's something inside of him that wants to still be coming to the light. Whereas when I first saw 8, I was like, okay, he's done. He's completely dark now. But maybe there is something still there deep down inside of him. Interesting enough, he was unable to really complete what Snoke wanted to have him complete inside of the cave, although Snoke fully believes that he did it. Then we find out as all of his rage, Kylo's rage, underground in the cave, actually ends up destroying the entire cave. Snoke's, outside of the cave and just sees it basically explode and rumble and crack, and the entire cave itself is blown up, which I thought was really sad because obviously, that cave's iconic to Star Wars, the tree, but Snoke's saying, wow, you've shown that your power's impressive. You have a lot of power, but that cave stood for thousands of years, and I really hope to bring other apprentices here. And that's when Kylo looks at him and he says, you won't need any other apprentices. I thought that was a really iconic way to end the comic here. Kylo just basically shutting Snoke down, saying, you're not going to need anyone but me. I'm giving this my all. Which is a very interesting thing to say right after he was unable to completely destroy his parents, but he still has that resolve and desire to be all in on the dark side. Really good comic overall, I thought, guys. I hope you enjoyed it and kind of going through it with me. I will try to keep doing these if you like them. Please leave some comments and thoughts on this comic, on what you think it could mean as far as, Snoke's ring, Kylo and his conflict that's within him. If you haven't already, guys, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because
is your destiny.